Hi, everybody. It's Jim Ostrowski back with the Liberty Moving podcast. And we're actually doing a whole series called Dr. Ostrowski's Political Class, where instead of doing a daily report about uh, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer made the country worse again today, which you already know, we're going to go back and sort of deconstruct everything about politics that libertarians need to know to battle the state. So, quick commercial interruption. So, before I can get to 1,000 subscribers and start to monetize this show, anybody wants to support my work, I'm really featuring a couple of books. The Second Amendment Works. It's a state-of-the-art primer on the real reason for the Second Amendment. It contains a lot of research. It's funny, one of the reviewers said, I always, there's too many opinions and not enough facts. And I was like, I don't know, did you even read the book? It's crammed with factual evidence that if you understand what the Second Amendment is, that the Second Amendment has worked fabulously for the United States, which has by far the most gun ownership in the world. So it's it kind of presents an extreme case. We have so many more guns than every other country on earth that it gives you a good case study, really, as to, well, what happens when you have way more guns owned by civilians than anyone else. Well, I didn't mean to do a whole thing on this book because I'm going to get to the book. But, well, for one thing, you have the most stable government, the oldest constitution, arguably, there's some dispute about that, oldest constitutional form of government on earth. You have political stability. No, January 6th was not an insurrection, you idiots. You haven't seen what an insurrection is. Just keep doing what you're doing if you want to see a real insurrection. That was just a riot gone astray. So the other thing is what's the most popular destination on earth for people to live? United States. Isn't that interesting? So that's one of the books I'm featuring. And the other book, this is my best-selling book. We're at 11,000 sold. It's really important for libertarians and fellow travelers to read that book because for 100 years we've been living under a certain paradigm or ideology of government, and we didn't really have a word for it. If you don't have a word for it, you can't defeat it. That's because politics is the battle of the dictionary. So that book identifies and deconstructs what the ruling ideology of America is and basically demolishes it. There's literally nothing left standing, which is, by the way, why no progressive has refuted the book. And they won't even try until I get to 1 million sold. And that's my goal. I'm over 1%. I'm an optimist. If you're not an optimist, then you really should need to, get out of the game of politics. So today I'm continuing our political class. We're at book 1, which is the book behind me. And chapter 3 is a massive essay on what's wrong with Buffalo, why Buffalo declined from one of the leading industrial cities on earth to the current sort of basket case that it is. And so it's going to be a number. The chapter is so massive that I'm going to require a number of episodes because I don't want to go too long here. So, and I'm also, with each podcast I'm preparing in the series of Dr. Ostrowski's political class, I'm doing a little study guide that'll eventually end up on the website that I'm working on, libertymovement.org. Don't even bother going there because it's not ready for prime time. It will be a kick-ass website of the type that simply does not exist right now. So let's get right into it. In the chapter, I talk about, well, what is a political machine? If we don't know what a political machine is, again, how do you defeat the machine? You're going to use the wrong tactics, the wrong strategy. So basically, a machine is a small, organized, disciplined group under quasi-military rule by a boss that works together to seize control of the state for economic exploitation. That's what a machine is. It's not necessarily a large organization. Like in Buffalo, the machine might have maybe 500, in each party. There's more people in the Democratic machine. The machine of each party is different for sociological reasons. I'm not going to really belabor that point, but each party has a machine. And really, the machines have more in common with each other than they do with the rest of the population. That's why I say the political machine, because it's really one apparatus with a lot of moving parts. So the machine is very disciplined, very well organized, unlike all reform efforts, which are all over the place. Everybody's fighting each other, personalities and egos and different ideologies. They can never get their act together. Well, the reason why the machine is so disciplined is because I compared it to Caesar's army defeating the Gauls, even though they were greatly outnumbered. By remaining tightly disciplined under control of one person, they're all moving in the same direction, like Caesar. Attack the left flank, and all of a sudden, 50,000, half of his troops are attacking the left flank of the disorganized Gauls, kind of, in the metaphor, sort of the reformers, because they're not well organized. So a small organized group can defeat a large unorganized group. And basically that's what the political machine does. They're a very small group defeating the masses of the population and basically taking control of the government, using the government as their own piggy bank. And they're able to do that because they're organized and the population is not. Now, I talk about reformers and why I had my own period of reform, and frankly, only lasted a few years because I was able to figure out that reform really doesn't work. So the machine monetizes its control of the state, and for political purposes. I have a rough figure later on in one of my books I talk about. Basically, if you take all government spending, about 1% of that is sort of recycled, refiltered back to the machine through donations and so on, or the work product of people who get jobs from the machine, their volunteer labor. And then that's why, like, when you run for Congress, they have $1 million and your reform candidate has like $12,000. And you have 50 volunteers and they have 1,000 volunteers, often the teachers union, which is really the shock troops of the Democratic Party. So the fact that they monetize the state, combined with their superior discipline and ruthless tactics, they're absolutely ruthless. Why are they ruthless? And this is highlighted in Buffalo because the big government sort of killed the economy. And a lot of people left, and oddly enough, that sort of strengthened the power of the machine, because they have their ability to provide these sort of patronage jobs with high pay, high benefits, and really not light duties, made the machine even more powerful. So in Buffalo, because the private economy has been really largely destroyed or diminished in size, the competition for the goodies that the machine can provide is more fierce, and that results in the machine and the people who run the machine being more ruthless, because if they don't win these battles, they have to hit the streets and get a drive Uber or something, or be the checkout person at Walmart, and they don't want to do that. They don't want to work for a living at suckers' wages, the way they look at things. So they're very ruthless, and they use the police, they use the courts, they use the prosecutors to retaliate, they use the judges they control to retaliate against anybody. I've seen it. Look, I'm not doing this as a substitute for reading the book. The book has all the details, all the anecdotes, all the footnotes, all the examples. I'm just giving you the overview, so you kind of have you get an overview of what I've learned in 40, 50 years of fighting these people. I've been doing it since I was a teenager. So basically, reformers come along, and for the reasons I've already indicated, they usually get their heads handed to them. But they have won on occasion. You know, for example, in 1977, a bunch of reformers won council seats in the city of Buffalo. And what did they reform? Nothing, because one of the points I make in the book is that when I was young, I used to blame the political machine. This was the big villain. We get rid of the political machine, everything will be fine. No, it's not true, because the machine is really not the problem. The machine is the symptom of the problem. And the problem is big government. And as long as you have big government, you're going to have machines. Government really can't be reformed. It's always going to be kind of the monster that it is. And therefore, these reformers get in there, they realize they can't really change anything. And they basically, I have an aphorism: all reformers turn into hacks. All reformers turn into hacks. That's what they do. I mean, like Ed Koch was a reformed Democrat. He became the mayor, and then he just became a typical machine hack. So it's true, the machine wastes a lot of resources with their silly patronage jobs and do-nothing jobs. It's really a drop in the bucket. And really the point that needs to be emphasized is that all the money seized from us by the government is wasted because what? It's no longer available for your most urgent use, your most urgent needs and wants. And so once the money is taken from you by the tax man, forget about it. And all this whining and moaning about how come my tax money is not being used properly. It's like, here's the point, ladies and gentlemen. That's why they have a gun when they take the money, or a threat of a gun. If you don't pay, eventually some kind of guy or gal with a gun is going to show up at your door and demand the money, or demand that you go to jail, or demand that you be go on trial for whatever. So what don't you understand? Once the money's taken out of your pocket, forget about it. All the energy has to be stopping that from happening by shrinking government and disempowering government. It can't be reformed. Don't even waste your time doing it. And again, I'm giving you a summary of the book. The book explains with all sorts of examples why this is true. Now, not only the left, but the right gets sucked into this pointless reform mentality. Republicans spend most of their time not abolishing progressive programs, because they haven't abolished one since like Woodrow Wilson's time. If anybody can name one, let me know. So that's why basically the GOP is essentially a giant fraud and a hoax. So the typical Republican, they have their idiotic slogan, "Let's get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse." There are many, many fallacies embedded in that slogan, and the cousins of that idiotic slogan is run government like a business. But the problem is you can't eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. They're inherent in government programs, since the government, what is the government? And this is covered in the book. The government, there's two ways to get wealth: production and exchange, or seizing the production and exchange. And Franz Oppenheimer, a sociologist, wrote a book about this. And he said, well, one is the economic means and the other is the political means. The government is the political means of acquiring wealth. So it's always fraud and abuse. Let's simplify. It's always fraud and abuse. It's taken from you by people who don't want to earn a living in the marketplace. And what don't you understand about that? It's all waste, fraud, and abuse. Once it leaves your pocket, it's going to be spent by people that you don't know, people you have no control over, and it's going to be spent on things that you oppose by definition. That's why they have the gun when they take your money. And it's as silly to talk about. Oh, you're not using our money efficiently. Would you say that about a burglar who broke into your house and stole $1,000? Would you say, you're not using that money efficiently? What is it about burglary that you don't understand? That's the whole point of the burglary. The burglar doesn't want you to use the money on what you want. They want to use it on what they want. That's a politician. What's the difference between a politician and a burglar other than better public relations by the politician? So the big fallacy, basically, running government like a business, that's also silly. So when Republicans try to make government programs work better, they're doing the impossible. Technically what they're doing is they're trying to re-inject the market into an area where the market's already been eliminated. So helping out poor people used to be a market function in the broadest sense, private charity. And private charity is very efficient because, as Rothbard points out, they don't have a lot of money. They got to really make sure that the people they're helping really aren't grifters. It's temporary. They get them back on their feet and move on to the next person. That's efficient as we can be in human affairs. But then when the government does it, there's no such incentives. They have, largely unlimited supply of money. They don't have the incentives to be careful. They have the incentives to be the opposite. And therefore the Republican says, well, wow, there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in that system. Well, of course there is. It's inherent in the nature of government programs, and you're never going to get that out of there except by eliminating the program. And then you'll be back to the efficiency of a private charity without large amounts of waste, fraud, and abuse. So basically, you can't square a circle. So, you can't run government like a business. Running government like a business is like running a business like the government. So imagine, you're walking down the street in, downtown Buffalo, and you see a bunch of restaurants. You say, well, where should we go? Well, this one, that one, the menu and this and that and the reviews and so on. But let's say you walk by a restaurant and they pointed a gun at your head and said, you have to come in here and come to our restaurant. That would be running business like a government. Okay, you see how silly that is? Just as silly as you can't run a government like a business. It's silly. So that's basically some of my thoughts in the chapter about what a machine is. We're going to go through the chapter. I know we're going on about 19 minutes. We're going to I'll go on with the rest of the chapter. It's so chock full of insights, it's hard to even glean, but I'm doing my best to summarize it. So basically, that's what a political machine is. They're disciplined, centralized. They monetize control of the government to beat you in elections. And that's really, why in my last several books I've been talking about why the best way to attack the machine is through direct citizen action, not the battlefield they have chosen, which is elections, courts, and lobbying. So I think I'm going to call it a day with that. We'll be back with another installment of Dr. Ostrowski's political class. If you want to support my work, all my books are on Amazon. And as long as the books sell, I'll be back with more podcasts. Thank you very much.